The story starts with Nick, who is a member of a great adventure group and he also has a beautiful girlfriend. But suddenly he was kicked out of the adventurer group and his girlfriend broke up with him. When he was kicked out of the group, Nick didn't know what to do anymore. Then an idol saw the sad Nick and gave him a concert ticket for her performance, so Nick immediately became one of her fans and spent all his money on her merchandise. Then Nick needed money again to finance his life, but when he was kicked out of his old group, Nick no longer trusted anyone and suffered a trauma. As a result, he lost courage as an adventurer and tried to forget his sorrows with alcohol. So he went to a bar where 3 other people were seated at his table. All of them shared the same destiny, that they had been deceived and betrayed by someone. So the magician Tiana began to tell her story that she was the best in her year at a magic academy and that she tried to be the best, because she wanted to make her fiancé happy with it. However, her fiancé cheated on her with another woman and she accused Tiana of bullying her in the magic academy. As a result, her fiancé broke off their engagement with Tiana. Then he accused her of the teachers treating him badly since Tiana was the best in the magic academy, so Tiana was kicked out of the magic academy and moved to another city. When she arrived, she tried to find a job, but she was rejected everywhere. Then one day, she discovered sports betting and won the first bet. By winning, she became addicted to sports betting and lost all her money. Since she had no more money, she tried to join an adventure group, but most people thought Tiana was arrogant and avoided her. So she ended up in the bar trying to drown her mistrust of other people with alcohol. Then the priest Zem told his story, that he lived in a village famous for their medicinal herbs. He lived there peacefully and collected medicinal herbs and helped treat the sick villagers with his healing magic. Unfortunately, a young girl named Miral, who was still a minor, fell in love with the priest. But Zem rejected her love and Miral became angry at his rejection. The next day, Priest Zem was arrested by guards at his clinic. He was accused of molesting Miral, that causing the innocent priest to be imprisoned. After serving his sentence, Zem was despised by everyone as scum. So he left town and met a nice woman. The innkeeper had back problems and Zem offered to treat her back with healing magic. The woman knew immediately that Zem is a good-natured man and advised him to go to the labyrinth city and become an adventurer. So the priest Zem ended up in the bar with them drinking alcohol. After that, Nick wanted the dragon warrior Curran to tell her story, but she was already too drunk that she almost started a fight. So they got drunk until the next morning and suddenly woke up with a blackout in Tiana's apartment. When they were all awake, they wanted to leave Tiana's apartment, but Nick came up with the idea of forming a new group with the 3, since they all shared the same fate. Everyone thought Nick's idea was great, so they formed their team called Survivors at the guild reception. Then when the Survivors group was formed, they set rules that must not be broken as they were all tricked in previous lives by many people into not trusting anyone anymore. When the rules were made, they devised a system so that no one could steal money without the knowledge of another member. After that, they went to their first dungeon together, which was very suitable for beginners since only slimes lived there. So the survivors did well in the dungeon, because Nick has survived and experienced many dungeons before. However, suddenly a slime attacked Tiana, and she became angry that she used an ice attack, she accidentally targeting Curran. Curran was able to fend off her attack at the very last moment, and since they all had a trust issues with their fellow human beings, an argument arose between the 2 women. As a result, the 2 women didn't team up with each other. When they got to a giant slime as the final boss of the dungeon, Tiana suddenly rushed in on her own to prove she could do pretty well on her own. Tiana's attack caused the slime to explode and they were all covered in slime. So Nick told the giant slime splattered over slime by strong magic. The tense situation in the dungeon made their trust in each other even worse, so Nick decided to do something about it. He told the group all his strengths and weaknesses, which led to more trust. After that, the priest Zem also told about his abilities and weaknesses, so Nick and Zem then opened up to the 2 women and this prompted Tiana to apologize to Curran. So the 2 reconciled and the survivors continued to try to overcome their trust issues. Once they were a real team again, they hunted goblins and got to know each other's skills better. After killing all the little goblins, Tiana uses one of her abilities and detects strong magic on a group of goblins in the forest. Upon hearing this, Nick assumed the strong magic was from an ogre. Nick wasn't sure if they could defeat him as their group was newly formed and a small mistake would mean their death. Also, if the ogre and the goblins are not killed immediately, it would cause problems in the city later on. But the group survivors wanted to trust each other and went into battle against the ogre. So the priest Zem and the magician Tiana took care of the support from behind and Curran attacked the ogre at the front with Nick. Then, as they teamed up perfectly, Curran attacked the ogre with her full power, and the survivors defeated a powerful enemy together for the first time. They then collected the goblin's horns as evidence for the guild, and Nick didn't intentionally break Curran's pendant. Then we see the reason why the pendant is so important for Curran. Curran was seen looking at jewelry and wanted to buy a pendant. Unfortunately, it was too expensive for Curran and she returned it to the merchant. Then the merchant tried to rip her off and scratched it himself to force her to buy it. However, a member of her previous adventure group, Kalios, came to her aid. He proved Curran's innocence and that the jewelry dealer is a swindler who swapped the correct pendant with a broken one. So Kalios got it for free and he gave the pendant to Curran as a gift, which made her very happy. Then Curran went into a dungeon with her adventurer party. They fought countless monsters until they got to the dungeon boss room. The dungeon boss hid in a jar and Kalios ordered Curran to lure the dungeon boss out of the jar and promised to support her from behind. But his kindness was a lie, as Kalios waited for the snake to emit a deadly venom, as he is at his weakest at that moment. So Curran was fatally poisoned and Kalios killed the dungeon boss snake. Afterwards, Kalios and his party left Curran and a moment later she passed out. But Curran managed to get up despite the deadly poison, because when she left her village, she was given a dragon jewel that was her most precious treasure. So Curran returned with his last energy to their inn. When she arrived, the other adventurers said that Kalios pronounced her as dead and disappeared with all her belongings. Curran couldn't believe Kalios' betrayal and after she recovered she looked for him everywhere. Unfortunately, there was no sign of Kalios and Curran got hungry. As she was thinking about what to eat, she met a man. He was known as Fifths the Solo Eater. So Curran followed him out of admiration and ordered the same as he ate. Since Fifths was a very strong adventurer, Curran admired him. So she has been following him every day. But Fifths noticed her following and always secretly gave her a tip, which meal she should try when choosing the meal. Through Fifths, Curran discovered her love of good food and filled since then the void in her heart with tasty food. So she spent every day just eating until she ran out of money and ended up in the bar where she met Nick and the other two. Back in the present, Nick was looking for a pendant that looked the same. He's still feeling guilty about breaking her pendant. Unfortunately, he couldn't find one and happened to meet his favorite idol in the park. She gave Nick some advice to just talk to Curran about the broken pendant. So Nick went to Curran. She offered him takoyaki that were too spicy for him. Curran laughed at that, and when Nick asked her about the pendant on a bridge, she replied that he didn't need to feel guilty, because she is rather happy that her pendant was broken. After that, Nick and the other randomly came up with the same idea to drink in the same bar, while many people recognized them or confessed their love to them. At the table, the survivors laughed together and Curran never imagined that she would meet new people who would fill the emptiness in her heart. But suddenly a receptionist from the guild came to the bar and the survivors were called into the guild. The survivors were offered a job for a holy sword in a dungeon. The guildmaster promised to buy the holy sword for a lot of money. Also, if they didn't find it, they would still pay the survivors for the expedition. Then they went into the dungeon and sought a legendary sword that boosts a group based on their bonds. While everyone was motivated as they began to trust each other more, Nick was still thinking about Curran's broken pendant. When searching, the survivors ended up in a blind passage and Nick looked at a green glowing lamp. Secretly, they were observed by a surveillance camera and it suddenly opened an entrance to a dark room. The survivors entered the room, after that the entrance locking behind them. As they proceeded, the lights came on and the legendary sword of bonds spoke to them, although the survivors thought it was broken because the sword had no blade. The legendary sword told him that it had been waiting for an owner for over 100 years, but the survivors planned to sell it to the guild. So Nick picked up the sword and suddenly they activated the sword's guardian system. This is how an amalgam golem appeared. The golem immediately attacked the survivors and Tiana countered with a strong ice spell. Curran then tried to attack the golem with her sword, but the golem threw Tiana's magic back and he injured Curran. Nick saw the golem's danger and tried to stop him so the others could escape. The golem didn't take any damage, because he was created of nanotechnology, so Nick activated the legendary sword. While the other survivors attempted to open the entrance, the legendary sword ordered Nick to say Union to activate his ability. Unfortunately, nothing happened and Nick was attacked by the golem. Then he fell down in a hole and was trapped. So Tiana tried to stop the golem and Curran went to Nick. When Curran was with Nick, the injured Nick ordered them to flee without him. Because otherwise everyone dies in the dungeon, but Curran wouldn't let him die. Then Nick suddenly apologized for the broken pendant and Curran said that she wanted to throw the pendant away anyway. But couldn't because she didn't wanted to admit that Kalios had betrayed her and left her to die. So she was happy when the pendant was broke, because she was finally able to restart, with new companions she could rely on. Suddenly, the legendary binding sword lit up and Nick tried the union ability again. Meanwhile, Tiana and Zem were trapped and they have also no more energy left. Just then Nick and Curren emerged fused together and pulverized the golem. When the golem was scattered into small pieces, it regenerated himself. Then Nick, who was fused with Curren, used a special attack and burned the golem to his death. Thus the monster was defeated and the two exhausted survivors were back in their own bodies. They then returned to the guild and the survivors sold a replica of the legendary sword from the dungeon to the guild. Because the true sword secretly turned into a boy and called himself Kazuna. That way, the survivors got their reward and the sword of bindings didn't have to rot in the guild storeroom. Then they distributed their reward to all members of the survivors including Kazuna and they pursued their hobbies. At the same time, Tiana invited Kazuna, who was seeing the world for the first time, to join her hobby of sports betting. So Tiana set out with Kazuna to enjoy gambling. On the next day Kazuna is enjoying his life. Then the lighter of Tiana caught his interest. After that, the survivors added up their fortune, realizing they were running low on money, so they decided to go make money. The next morning the day started, so Tiana got ready for the day. Then we saw the other survivors who were still waking up and their leader Nick was still sleeping because he had a dream about his ex-girlfriend Claudine. They were in a cafe and he gave her jewelry, but it wasn't enough for her and she suddenly went nuts. This is how Nick woke up from his nightmare and he realized his nightmare was caused by Kazuna using telepathy to send his thoughts to Nick while he was sleeping. When everyone woke up, they went into a dungeon together. To make money, they hunted a strong ogre, and using Kazuna's telepathic abilities to sneak on secretly. Then Kazuna pounced on the ogre with loud screams and the plan to sneak on the ogre had failed. This is how Kazuna fights against the strong ogre and fends off all his strong attacks. The other survivors were really surprised about Kazuna since he had so many overpowered abilities to overwhelm the ogre. So Kazuna single-handedly defeated the beast and boasted about his skills. Then Curren got hungry and they decided to go back into town to have lunch. When Nick was eating with Curren and Kazuna, he heard the voice of his ex-girlfriend Claudine and another guy. A very naive boy gave Claudine a present and she wanted to scam him and taking more money of him. But Nick felt sorry for the naive boy, so he got involved and screwed up her scam and exposed her lies. So Claudine angrily left the restaurant and Nick prevented the naive boy from being scammed. Then, when the survivors were all together planning their next dungeon exploration, Claudine showed up with Leon and spilled her drink on Nick in revenge. Nick didn't really mind that a drink was thrown on him. But Leon provoked Nick and wanted to confront him for troubling Claudine. He then asked Nick to go outside with him. So the two went into an alley and suddenly Leon apologized, which confused Nick a lot. Leon said he knows himself that Claudine is a scammer and Nick could do whatever he want with her, because he didn't mind. Then Leon also called Nick a scammer who only takes advantage of his friends. Nick got angry and lashed out at him. Nick hated scammers and made it clear to Leon that he would never scam his friends as friendship was more important to him than anything else. When Nick got the upper hand, a buddy of Leon suddenly appeared and attacked Nick from behind. But Curren wouldn't let him and came to Nick's aid. Then the others appeared too and Leon suggested they settle their conflict with each other with a mathematic bare-knuckle battle. The rules of the mathematic bare-knuckle battle were explained to the survivors. One person in the group is randomly selected to calculate math problems and another has to fight a fistfight. When Curren was chosen to calculate the math problems, she panicked and her opponent was Claudine. Then Curren practiced math non-stop and worried as math wasn't her forte, but her friends encouraged her. For weeks, the survivors prepared to help Curren learn and develop a strategy against Leon's group. In doing so, Zem learned from many different women that Leon's group will cheat. Through Zem's gathered information, Tiana was able to find out that the opposing group uses mind stones, which allow them to use telepathy through magic. Then we saw the dream of Claudine, because she used to be a nice and innocent child until her parents wanted to sell her for money. So she ran away and started scamming people to survive. After Claudine woke up, the mathematics bare-knuckle bat started. So Nick fought against Leon while Curren solved the math problems. In the first round, Claudine won and so Nick received a penalty of taking a punch without fighting back. After Leon's first goal, the second round started and Curren lost again, so Leon punched him, that Nick was injured. Curren got worried about him, because she couldn't take Nick being hurt by her incompetence. So Nick motivated her that he had a plan and she should just keep going. Meanwhile, the other survivors members tried to uncover the Mind Stone cheat, but they found no trace as Claudine hasn't started cheating yet. In order for the survivors to win in the end, Tiana tried to force Claudine to cheat. So all tasks of the remaining 7 rounds were combined into one, and in case of a defeat Nick would have to endure all penalties at once. Through this plan, they got Claudine to use telepathy with the Mind Stone and Tiana was able to track down the accomplice. Leon realized that they had fallen into the survivor's trap. Unfortunately, he couldn't warn Claudine, who was cheating. So Claudine desperately tried to get the solutions by her accomplice, but the survivors prevented the cheating and Nick kept fighting Leon. Then Claudine despaired at solving the math problems, and when Tiana and Zem caught Claudine's accomplice, they tied him up and revealed their cheat. Everyone was shocked by the scam and Leon's group was arrested by the bodyguards as a result of the scam. Claudine didn't want to accept it and said to everyone that she wasn't always a bad person. Then the survivors celebrated their victory and they all were very happy that they won together. Leon was in prison and remembered his previous adventuring party led by his big brother Bischot. Bischot was a very clever tiger man and through him, they conquered a very dangerous dungeon. They also managed to loot many valuable treasures through Bischot, but one night his brother was murdered. He died a senseless death, because he was betrayed by a teammate. Since then, Leon didn't trust nobody and he started hating all humans. Then a prison guard showed up, he tortured Leon to get the rare treasures he possessed. Leon refused and he summoned the legendary Sword of Destruction. Then we see the survivors' members and Tiana is in the casino playing poker. Nick accompanied her, because he was babysitting Kazuna. Kazuna wanted to go to the casino, because his reason was to buy the tasty ice cream that they sell. As Kazuna queued up waiting for his delicious ice cream, a worker appeared and he was told that the ice cream was sold out. After that, Nick and Kazuna went to see their friend Tiana, who was at the poker table. Tiana was a gambling pro and she beat Agate's boyfriend at poker. She won all the money from Agate's boyfriend, so she claiming that he has no talent for gambling. Agate immediately realized that Tiana was being mean to him, because she wanted to help the man overcome his gambling addiction. This is how Agate thanked Tiana for her good intention to help her. Tiana noticed that he had gambled with using all of Agate's money. Then Leon appeared and he was transformed into a dangerous monster. He sought revenge on the adventurer Nick and we see what was happening a short time before. While he was in prison he summoned his legendary intelligence sword. The intelligence sword of destruction freed him from his bonds and offered to help Leon in his quest for revenge. Then Leon used the power and the sword gave him a dangerous power that transformed him into a monster and increased his hatred against Nick. He broke out of prison and went looking for Nick. Through his strong sense of smell Leon got into the casino. Then he met Tiana and he noticed Nick's scent on her. Leon threatened Tiana to tell him where Nick is, otherwise he would kill her. Tiana hesitated with her answer, because she had no intention of betraying Nick. Meanwhile, Nick and Kazuna noticed that everyone in the casino was panicking and running away from something. Then Tiana tried to find a way out and she lit a pipe and started smoking. At that moment Leon was distracted and she attacked him with a spell. Tiana immediately ran away with Agate, but Leon didn't mind the attack and threw a table at them both, so Agate was injured. Then Tiana tried to win some time, she wanted to sacrifice herself, as a result that Leon couldn't find Nick. When Leon was about to wipe her out, Nick showed up. He protected Tiana and fought Leon with his own intelligence sword. When Leon fought Nick, his sword noticed that Nick also possesses an intelligence sword and the two swords started chatting. The two swords knew each other from the past and wanted to obliterate each other. So Leon's sword raged him up, that his hatred against Nick increased more. Followed Tiana asked Kazuna to activate his special skill union as well. Subsequently, Nick and Tiana merged together into a mighty warrior. Together they used powerful ice spells. Then they attacked Leon and at that moment he realized that the sword was mind-controlled him. The sword increases the thirst for revenge in a person and Leon wanted to stop, but the sword caused him to hurt many people and further increased his hatred. Leon lost control of his body and the fused warrior locked Leon in an ice cage. Then they tried to stop Leon, but the sword caused Leon to lose his senses and he couldn't think clearly. Leon couldn't control himself and broke out of the ice cage, he wanted that someone stop him. Then Nick and Tiana attacked him, the two managed to save Leon and seal the evil sword with an ice spell. After that, Leon was sent back to prison. Suddenly Nick showed up to visit him and he gave him advice about the trust of humans. The next day, Nick was working out and suddenly he heard Agate's voice. Agate was secretly behind Nick and teased him a bit. After that they was chatting, because Agate retired as an idol. Nick told her that he is her loyal fan and was happy that Agate showed him the idol world. Then Agate was seen at her boyfriend's club, working as a singer, and the club had no guests. Suddenly a man appeared who discovered Agate he was a producer who liked her great singing. His name was Joseph Coleman and he wanted to make Agate to an idol. Then her friend Donnie, who was also the owner of the club, showed up. He wanted to send Joseph Coleman away, so Joseph Coleman told him that he can make Agate a star and she can make a lot of money from it. The man then gave Agate an invitation to a concert. Agate was invited with 2 other women to the concert. When the concert started, everyone was amazed by the idols. Agate then became an idol and she also met the other 2 women again. They became friends and she spent a nice time together as an idol with them. Shortly thereafter, the relationship between Agate and her boyfriend Donnie got worse, because Donnie started borrowing money from her. He lied to her constantly and only saw her as a source of money to finance his gambling. Agate was sad about his relationship, but she didn't want to break up with Donnie. In the following days, she was in a restaurant. She overheard Nick being scammed and dumped by Claudine. Nick's sad look made her feel sorry, so Nick and Agate met each other for the first time. Agate was also in a relationship and was in a similar situation to Nick in that Donnie was only using her as a source of money. Then they were at the casino, where she met a goddess. With the events of the day, Agate plucked up the courage to break up with his boyfriend Donnie. The day that followed, the producer Coleman helped her, because he paid all of Donnie's debts and in return Donnie has to sign a contract that he disappear of Agate's life. Agate then ended her relationship with Donnie and first he couldn't believe that Agate had broken up with him. So Agate explained everything to him and told him the reasons she wanted to end their relationship. Suddenly Donnie laughed and Agate wished him good luck in his future life. She also hoped that he would manage to stop gambling. Donnie left the room and Agate thanked her producer for all the help by his side. Donnie kept his promise to producer Coleman and never approached Agate again. A few days later, Agate reappears as an idol and her fans celebrated her comeback. She sang a song dedicated to the goddess she met at the casino. Meanwhile, Nick was back at her concerts as a fan who was very happy about the song. A few days later, Nick ran into Agate again. She was hiding and wanted to trick Nick again like the last time. After that she thanked him and told him that she was glad to have met him in the rain. In the days that followed, Kazuna reads a magazine about a phantom named Stepping Man. In his magazine it said that the Stepping Man kidnapping children at night. In addition, the Stepping Man can jump through the air. Nick said that Kazuna shouldn't believe everything he read in magazines. Suddenly, a woman named Olivia, who had written the Stepping Man article, appeared. Kazuna was her biggest fan and she felt honored that he enjoyed reading his articles. Then she introduced herself as an adventuress and reporter who has a lot of energy. As night fell, Zem was drunk on his way home and he witnessed a kidnapping. Meanwhile, Nick was with Kazuna at an Agate Idol concert and he really enjoyed her concert. Suddenly Kazuna sensed that Zem is in danger. They immediately ran to Zem and Nick couldn't believe that his friend was being attacked by the invisible Stepping Man. Then Nick couldn't do anything because of the opponent's invisible ability. But Kazuna could easily locate him and he tried to attack him. The Stepping Man fought back and counterattacks Kazuna, so he managed to escape. After that, Zem managed to rescue the kidnapping of a girl and took her to a safe place as quickly as possible. He took her to his favorite bar. Afterwards, Nick learned that Reina's mother tried to catch the Stepping Man and she was injured by fighting against him. She was in the hospital and nobody believes her that the Stepping Man existed. The reason that Reina was outside is Reina tried to catch the Stepping Man to prove her mother's plausibility. Then Zem encouraged the girl that the Stepping Man exists, because Zem and his friends saw him with their own eyes. Then Reina asked if she could be his student and Zem said that in 15 years she could apprentice with him. Meanwhile, Nick and a woman tried to prevent Reina from getting too close to Zem as they knew about Zem's tragic past. The next day, the survivors researched information about the Stepping Man. However, they became bounty hunters to get more information about the Stepping Man. As they chose their first assignment, a bounty hunter overheard the conversation and he looked down on the survivors. The other bounty hunter wanted to bet on the failure of the survivors, and Tiana immediately jumped in with a huge sum of money. She bet that the survivors will complete their mission and catch the bandit named Hale. After that, they went to the slums, because they had information confirming that Hale was in the slums. Then they found Hale in an abandoned house and he immediately tried to escape, but Kazuna prevented it. When Hale was arrested, Dr. Nalgava showed up. He was a priest who was treating Hale's illness, because he had the yellow demon sickness. Nick learned that there is a law in the slums that the bedrooms is a safe zone. Nick then explained that Hale had a bounty on his head and the priest Nalgava was cooperating with the survivors. He left Nick the criminal and suddenly Kazuna asked if Dr. Nalgava had any information about the Stepping Man. Then Hale laughed, because he told the survivors that children disappear in the slums is everyday life. Hale also said that he recently saw a suspicious reporter approaching children and handing them candy. Following this, the survivors completed their first bounty hunter assignment and Tiana won her bet. She used her one money and she spent everyone drinks at the pub. The next day with their completed quest they got more information about the stepping man. Nick then noticed that the reporter Olivia was giving candy to Reina. So Nick was unsure about his guess, because he had a hunch that Olivia was their target. Followed Olivia was interrogated by Nick and she behaved suspiciously. When Nick asked who she really is, she used her abilities and escaped by destroying the ceiling of the pub. This is how the survivors found out that the reporter Olivia is the stepping man, and Kazuna was angry because he couldn't believe that she was writing the articles all the time about herself. Then Reina's mother visited the survivors. Nick knew Ada, because she was a famous adventuress. Afterwards, Reina told her mother that she wanted to be Zem's apprentice, and Zem told her that he doesn't get along with underage girls, because he always gets scared around them. So she learned about his past, that he was put in prison by a girl who lied and betrayed him. After that, Ada advised the survivors to give up the quest to catch the stepping man, because he is extremely dangerous. Unfortunately, Nick couldn't ignore the fact that the stepping man continues to kidnap children. As a result, Nick then asked Ada to help them catching the stepping man. After that, Ada then shared her informations to them. She also told them what they need to defeat the stepping man. She showed the survivors a magic lighter as Ada wanted to find out which of them was the most talented. Then Ada found out that Nick had a lot of potential to learn new magic skills and she wanted to train him to defeat the stepping man. The next day, Nick began his training to compete against the stepping man. As night fell, the stepping man tried to kidnap another girl, but the survivors showed up in time. They rescued the little girl and tried to catch the stepping man, but the stepping man had an artifact that hid his real identity, so he disappeared and Nick was unsure if the stepping man was Olivia. Then Nick visited Leon in prison and asked if Leon had any information about a magical artifacts that hid the true identity and power up the strengths. He told Nick about an artifact that resembled stepping man's abilities. He also learned that the artifact's powers don't work if the other person knows their true identity. The next morning, Nick trained again and he recalled about his childhood learning martial arts techniques. He struggled with his teachers and was able to win by not giving up. After that, back in the present, Nick successfully mastered the training of the adventurous Ada. Nick had learned new skills to fight the stepping man and his friends found a clue. They sought out a man who had information on the stepping man. They then found the location and Nick was attacked by Olivia. They couldn't see each other through the fog and Olivia mistook Nick for the stepping man. But Nick claimed the same about Olivia and they fought each other. When Nick used his newfound technique, Olivia was sure Nick was the stepping man who kidnapping children's. Nick then yelled the name of Olivia as it would disable the stepping man's artifacts abilities. Then Olivia realized it was Nick and the fog cleared. Olivia explained to them the misunderstanding that several people are referred to as stepping man. Also she told them that she isn't the stepping man that they are searching. Suddenly she repaired her damage and Nick said that she is very suspicious with her abilities. She tried to change the topic and Kazuna found out that Olivia is an ancient witch. Then Olivia suggested they go find the stepping man together. Followed then Olivia and the survivors examined a dead body of a girl, but the identity could not be determined. Olivia noticed something was wrong with the corpse and they discovered a fragment of the artifact Illusion King's jewel that the stepping man was using. This enabled her to determine that the stepping man was behind the girl's death. She then went looking for more clues and Zem had a guess as to who the real stepping man is. During the night, Nick tracked down the stepping man and Nick fought against him. Nick told the stepping man that his academic papers revealed his true identity, so Nick took the chance and said the name Nalgava. Nick was able to deactivate his power from the artifact named the Jewel of the Illusion King. Followed Nick told him that Zem has discovered his true identity and his motives for using the slum children as test subjects. After that, Nalgava was attacked by Nick, who destroyed the roof in the process. Nalgava was surrounded by the survivors, so Nalgava told them his reason for kidnapping children in the night as test subjects. The reason was his little daughter died from the yellow demon sickness and we learned that the yellow demon sickness is mainly spread through sexual contact. The daughter of Nalgava became infected with the blood of an injured person whom she wanted to help, since her role model was her priest father. When she contracted the disease, bad rumors arose. The rumors was that Nalgava's little daughter slept with a lot of guys. The false rumors made Nalgava angry, because even after her death, the rumors persisted and Nalgava tried to develop a cure for the yellow demon sickness as his goal. He then kidnapped many children from the slums to use them to find a medicine against the sickness. Zem heard the rumors about Nalgava's daughter and felt sorry for the priest for losing his daughter. Then Nalgava said that he doesn't care how many children die for his experiments. Suddenly, Zem said that they recently brought a girl who died in the experiment to her parents and they were also sad like Nalgava. Zem told him his terrible deeds and Zem's words made Nalgava feel ashamed of his evil deeds. He was beginning to realize that the victims' families are just as sad as when he lost his beloved daughter. Then Zem said that even as a former priest he can still do good deeds and that his daughter would have wanted him to help sick people. Because despite his sad fate, Nalgava tried to heal sick people in the slums. Suddenly, Kizuna felt a powerful aura and an enemy pierced Nalgava with a laser beam. The enemy appeared and it was an intelligent artifact. He wanted to kill Nalgava because Nalgava belonged to a member of an evil organization. Also he wanted to kill the survivors too without any reasons. Curran and Tiana then attempted to attack the black armor, but he immediately disabled them both. Zem tried to heal Nalgava and Zem was called naive, because his friends were in danger too. Nalgava said that he should prioritize saving his friends first, otherwise his friends would die. Nick wanted to use Union and all of his friends trusted Zem to make it happen. Meanwhile, Olivia wanted to get some time for the survivors. As a result Zem and Nick could create a fusion together. Followed Olivia noticed the danger of the armor, she knowing that the armor is a magical artifact called the White Mask. Then Olivia fought the White Mask and she attacked him at his mask. Knowing that the White Mask is far too strong, she tried to get more time for their fusion. So Nick and Zem fused successfully into a strong warrior and then Olivia's opponent tried to kill her. He locked Olivia in a magic field designed to kill her with strong gravity. Zem and Nick wanted to save Olivia, but the White Mask tried to prevent it. However, the fused warrior tried to defeat the enemy with their speed. Suddenly, Olivia managed to break out of the gravity field and the enemy was overwhelmed by the speed of their attacks. Olivia distracted the enemy, and the White Mask fell into Zem and Nick's trap. Then Kizuna should defeat the enemy and he almost managed to destroy the White Mask. The White Mask fled from the danger and caused a huge explosion. The survivors were unconscious and a dangerous trap was planted into Nalgava's body. Nalgava said to just let him die as the building is about to collapse. Zem then used magic to ease his pain and Nalgava said goodbye to the survivors. When Nalgava died, Zem was sad because he couldn't save Nalgava, through he do a lot of crime. His friends encouraged Zem that he was trying his best and so the stepping man case was closed. Suddenly, Olivia said that the danger isn't over yet and Nick wanted to know Olivia's true identity. Next Olivia introduced her that she is also an intelligent sword like Kizuna. This is how the survivors learned that Olivia is the Sword of War and that she will be a member of the survivors from now on. After fighting the stepping man, the survivors began to doubt humanity again, and the adventurer Nick remembered the accident in his childhood. Then we see Nick and his parents in a carriage. They were visiting the labyrinth city. Suddenly the carriage stopped and Nick's mother pushed him into a secret hiding place. Nick's parents were attacked and killed by bandits, so he tried to escape. Suddenly Agras, a friend of his family, appeared in front of him. He killed the bandits and apologized to him for not being able to save his parents. He then raised Nick and he showed him the life as an adventurer. Agras taught Nick everything and he accepted him into his adventure group named Master of War. Nick was happy in his life. Despite his misfortune, he decided to become stronger and he got a short sword from Agras as a gift. Nick couldn't forget his past and he wanted to move on, but he still couldn't fully overcome his distrust of humans. Suddenly Nick heard a familiar voice outside of his apartment and he realized it was Idle Agate. She happened to be standing in the rain in front of his apartment and he wanted to give her back the umbrella he had borrowed. So Agate cheered Nick up and they talked for a while in the rain. Then we see the priest Zem and he took care of Dr. Nalgava's patients in the slums. When a patient asked if he murdered Nalgava, Zem answered yes, although he was not at fault for Nalgava's death. Zem still felt guilty and continued to treat the patients of Nalgava in the slums. Then we see Tiana. She pursued her hobby of gambling, but she was deep in thought. She was also insecure, because she could not completely overcome the mistrust of humans. Although she knows that she has now trustworthy friends. In the afternoon, all survivor members were at the guild house, and Curran wanted to make sure everything was okay after the stepping man incident. Everyone claims they are fine, and Kizuna asked Zem if he was still medically treating the patients in the slums. Zem said that Kazuna must remember the survivors' rule of not interfering in the hobbies of the other members. All survivors' members looked happy, so Curran wondered if she was the only one still having trust issues and can't overcome her trust issue. Then Curran walked around the town and she wondered if the others had already forgotten their past. The reason was she couldn't forget her past with Kalios and her old adventurer group. She knew that he had betrayed her and stolen the Dragon Clan treasure, but she didn't want to forget the good times with her old adventure group. Then Curran saw that a merchant, who tried to scam her in the past, found a new scam victim. Curran helped the girl, who was threatened by the evil jewelry merchant, and Curran could prevent the scam and rescued the girl. Suddenly, Nick and the other survivors' members showed up. They wanted to go to a festival together. As Curran spent time with her friends, Curran didn't know if she would ever overcome her doubts of mistrust of humans. Still, Curran was happy, because she hoped that with the survivors she could eventually overcome her trauma and her trust issues. After that, Olivia appeared, spreading news everywhere, because she had gathered interesting information. Their sheet said that the legendary Demon King would soon be resurrected. Nick didn't want to believe her at first, but Olivia managed to convince him that her rumors weren't lies. Also, Olivia was determined to find the black market where Nelgava could get his magical item. Curran then wondered if the Dragon King's jewel that Kalios had stolen from her could also be found on the black market. Nick encouraged Curran and told her that he and her friends will help her. Also that she doesn't have to worry, because no one will betray her. Everyone tells Curran that they will all do it together, and Olivia manages to encourage the survivors that they can defeat the Demon King. So the survivors wanted to find the Demon King and defeat him together as their next goal.